All right, guys. Man, been sitting here for days. Just wore out. A couple days been sitting here. It's not tremendous. Chris Keys asked, Chris, are you still a patron? Are you still here, brother? Comment down below. Let me know. You alive? You well? You got a pulse? Anybody got eyes on Chris? Is he asleep behind the pallet of stuff over there in the corner? Chris Keys asked, bug out benchmarks. Basically, when to bug out. I get this question constantly. I've addressed it in several videos. So I'm going to paraphrase everything I've already said already. Your benchmarks are going to be different than my benchmarks. This is very dependent upon who you are, how many people you're responsible for, and where you live, to say nothing of what SHTF looks like. So this is one of those answers where it depends. Now, I don't like the answer, it depends. So at the very least, I can help flesh out for you what it depends on. The first thing I would say it depends on is, what does SHTF look like? Because there's a lot of ways this can go. My personal pet scenario is economic collapse with socioeconomic, slash geopolitical turmoil of people behaving badly. I don't think, what did Sasquatch call them? Peruvian paratroopers or something like that. I don't think that a company of men are going to drop into this field behind me over here and start shooting anytime soon. Could I be wrong? Yes. But it's a probability versus possibility game with SHTF. So probability versus possibility. Everything is possible. There's a possibility that aliens fly right overhead right now and beam me up out of this chair and you never see this disgusting mug again. The probability of that, I would say, is so close to zero that it's a non-issue. In my mind, it's a non-issue. I am not preparing in my life for something like that to happen. Now, that's an extreme, but I use the extreme to illustrate the point that there are things that are much more likely to happen than things that are not likely to happen. Okay? And so we prep for the things that are most likely to happen first. I think, based upon the things that I can observe in society today, always trying to do a real good job of not getting stuck in a positive feedback loop, right? If all you do is read stories about how the sky is falling, sooner or later you're going to come to the conclusion that the sky is falling. Even though it makes me cringe, I try and read and listen to dissenting viewpoints because it forces me to examine my own convictions and make sure that I'm thinking in the right direction. And so for me, I think an economic collapse is coming. And I think that in a lot of ways we're being conditioned subtly for the idea of money that is worth less, if not worthless. Now, that will probably be for a time. I do think it will be a global issue because so many countries are dependent upon the US dollar. But something will rise up in place of the dollar, whether it's the dollar 2.0 or America 3.0 or whatever. Something will happen. Okay? So I think that is very likely to happen. And I think that we are very likely to have one of my sheep is inside my barn right now. Interesting. There we go. Okay. Cool. He made it out. They're free ranging at the moment. He got himself in the barn and got freaked out. Couldn't get himself out of the barn, but he figured it out. All right, so the craziness of homesteading. So I think you add in to a dollar that is worth less, food shortages. which are likely to happen if you've been following the Ice Age Farmer. You'll see a pretty good argument there. There's also Adapt 2030 is another good channel. And then, you know, just the climate change, and I don't say that from a liberal standpoint, but, you know, grand solar minimum and its effects and mini ice ages and so forth and so on. I think all of that is going to cause societal upheaval. And if we look back in history, which history is a great teacher, we can see the effects of, you know, lots of monarchies, their heads rolled at times when there was not enough food. And the people didn't have the purchasing power that was required in order for them to get through their daily life. So I see those things coming. So now, based upon that, what would I do? I would do exactly what I am doing. I do not live near a large density of population. I don't. You have to want to get here to get here. That is by design. By the Father's plan, we were moved here, but I totally understand why we were moved here. It fits all of the parameters of the things that we were looking for, including a low population density. We did the math recently. It's about 10 people per square mile where we are right now, including our family. So that's pretty good. And it's the right population density as far as I'm concerned, because there's not so many people that I'm worried about the roving hordes of zombies, but it's not too few people that I can't find somebody to give me a hand if I need help with something. And so, and we're stocking food and producing food. So bug out benchmarks. I would say if we see societal unrest, you know, upheaval and economic collapse, what would you be doing to pay attention to that? You know, consume alternate media sources that are as close to the events as possible. You can look on Drudge. Drudge is an amalgamation of reports from other people elsewhere, but if you can read between the lines on Drudge, you can get a decent picture. There's a lot of good YouTube channels. And you guys can tell me down below what do you consume for, where do you get your data from? You know, let me know. But I would look at, man, when gasoline gets really expensive or really cheap, okay. When your dollar, you just doesn't have the purchasing power anymore that it did real quick, that's an issue. When the grocery store is repeatedly having a hard time keeping things stocked on the shelves, yep. Now, it depends on where you are, right? Because if you're bugging out, right, is bugging out your first line of defense or your last line of defense? Because here where we are, it's my last line of defense, dude. I'm only bugging out here if something's on fire, if somebody's trying to take my home from me, or if the situation has truly become untenable. But if you're in the suburbs, unfortunately, that's going to be your first line of defense. So God forbid you're in the cities. If you're in a city right now, you need to move. And I don't say that lightly. I mean it deeply. You need to move. You need to get away from people because it's a resources game. So, you know, bug out benchmarks, you can feel it, man. You can feel the tension in the air. When it feels like around you, man, I've lived and worked in cities. I've lived and worked in the suburbs, man. I've spent a lot of time doing that. I've spent a lot of time watching people and analyzing people and how they move and why they move that way and what their body language is. And you just get a feel for when things are gonna happen. And when you can feel that tension in the air, go. Especially if you're a husband or father or a wife and mother, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility. You are answerable to the creator of the universe for these people that you've been given to steward. Go. And I would much prefer you go before than during or after. Go. So, and I've been saying this for about a year. Keep a week of vacation saved up at work all the time. Just keep it. Last minute. Hey, Bob, listen, Bob, it's T. Yeah, something came up. My mom's not doing great. I got to go. Well, yeah, but I got to go, all right? Listen, I'm taking a week's vacation. Bye. And go. Go. Come back a week later if it's nothing. Oh, how's your mom? Oh, she's good, man. Thanks. Thanks, man. Yeah, she's good. Oh, what was wrong with her? Ah, man, it's, you know, I really don't want to talk about it. But thanks, man. Yeah, she's good. Um, worst case, you know, worst case scenario, you blew a week's vacation and you got paid to practice your bug out plan. Okay. But and part of this too is getting independent from the system as you can. That when you decide it's time to pull stakes and go, you don't have to ask anybody's permission to do that. It astounds me how many people operate from positions in their life where they need somebody else's permission to just do whatever the hell they want in their life. And I've been there. I've played that game, and I got out, man. And I'm living proof that you can get out too, right? Not that special. I just figured out what my stupid human trick is. You need to figure out what your stupid human trick is and do it, right? You'll get compensated for it, and you're no longer beholden to the man to ask his permission if I can bug out to avoid this disaster that might kill me and my family. Now, if there's martial law coming, go. If there's a shortage of food, go. If there's a shortage of fuel, go. If natural disaster has happened or is imminent, is going to happen, go. If the sirens at the nuke plant start going off, go. If the hair on the back of your neck stands up and you're so tense in your stomach it feels like there's golf balls stuffed underneath the skin in between your abs and your skin, you're like, go. Go. If the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, whispers in your ear and says, go, then you go. And it's astonishing to me how many people are worried about what other people think, what the perception is going to be of, oh, you bugged out. You're damn right I did. You know what? I'm glad I did. Next time, I'll leave early again, and you'll be a smoldering pile of ash, bro. Come at me. Dude, it's practice. Worst case scenario, it's practice. You don't want the first time you bug out to be the day that you need to do it for real. Okay, it's like carrying a CCW weapon on your hip and having never even qualified with it. Stupid. So, when to leave bug out benchmarks, man, you know. You know. The thing is, it's more of a reptile brain, you know. It's not necessarily logical. Although you could certainly apply logic to it. But the thing is, it's such a dynamic situation with so many contributing factors that it's hard to just establish a true benchmark, not knowing where you are or what you do or where you live. But man, don't live in the cities, and I really don't like people living in the suburbs either. And if you live in the suburbs, live on the edge of them or have a plan to GTFO the moment you decide that it's time to go. The moment you decide it's time to go. In the suburbs, we have a little 5x7 trailer, little tiny 5x7 trailer. And I kept that thing in the garage, stocked up, ball hitch pointed out, with everything that we would need to go on it. And all I would have to do is hook my truck or my wife's SUV to that trailer, and it weighed, you know, it's easy enough. I could pick up the ball hitch and roll it around with one hand, drop it on the ball hitch, flop that thing down, and we're good to go, right? We keep bug out bags in the vehicles for ourselves as well as our children. You put the kids in the car, you hitch the trailer, you go. And during times of like uncertainty, we'd have a duffel bag packed with snacks and reading material and all the things that kids need for a car ride, all those things ready to go by the door. That we can literally throw the kids in the car, grab the duffel bag, throw it in the back seat, y'all have fun, we're hitching the trailer, we're out of here. Well, where are we going? That's on you, man. You need to know where you're going. Okay, you need a way to monitor transmissions so you know what's going on around you, right? And that's outside the scope of this discussion, but you need those things. You ought to be aware of the tone and pulse of your surroundings. And as they shift, so do you. When things get really quiet, things are going to get bad. If things get really loud, things are going to get bad. If people who normally have a carefree attitude and a smile on their face do not, things are going to get bad. If the authorities tell you to evacuate, go, get out. We're gonna stay here and rebuild. Okay? Okay? If you're watching this video, you have at least some disposable income, which means you can afford to go. So go. I don't have hard and fast benchmarks. They don't exist. You know what they are for you. But I think it's about having a hair trigger on when to bug out. Because you're burning daylight, letting the situation get worse and worse and worse around you by not acting. That's why we plan. That's why we prepare. That's why we do all of these things. So when it's time to act, our time to implementation, and this is a business term, man, our time to implementation is as short as possible. We can just go. We've done all the preparation. That's why it's called prepping, because we're preparing to be prepared to go. So if you're sitting around wondering when to go, the whole thing comes down to the idea that we're going. So go. Right? It defeats the purpose to do all the things, to have the bug out vehicle, the bug out plan, the bug out location, the bug out route, the bug out bag, the bug out shoes. This is my bug out iPod with my jams on. Like, come on, we're gonna go. Second Exodus, or whatever, right? To do all of those things and then not go. To hamstring yourself with crappy time to implementation makes no sense whatsoever. It's just completely illogical. So the reason we prepare is to reduce our time to implementation to as close to zero as possible so that we can go when we need to go. My bug out benchmarks here is when the situation becomes untenable. If there's an imminent threat that I cannot address, if there is a natural disaster that is going to occur or has occurred, or if it is just simply not sustainable for me to stay here anymore, I'm gone. But I live here. If you live in the city, bug out right now. Grab your shit, throw it in a bag, and go. Okay. Yeah, and somebody told me recently, like, T, you've been saying a lot of bad words lately. I've been living a lot of life lately, so apologies if it hurts your ears. I don't mean to offend. It's just the way it is. Okay? If you live in the city, go. If you live in the suburbs, I would prefer you lived on the edge of town and you had a plan to get out right now. And if you live out here, you know, shelter in place when you live in an environment like this, as long as you can sustain, is ideal. Because now we get to pick when we go. Okay, you live in a city, nobody's gonna you don't get to pick when you go. You live in the suburbs, you don't get to pick when you go. Out here, we have some say in the matter. We have a lot more say in the matter here than anywhere else because of, drum roll please, the population density equation. Okay. Chris, I probably raised more questions than I answered with this, but you know how to answer them because you are in your situation, living your life, and I'm not. Now, this is what we do, part of what we do at Prosperity. So if you're willing to compensate for some time, we're happy to help you with it. And I say that not from a position of ego, but just that's what we do. You walk into a CPA's office because you have some tax questions, they're going to charge you. It's what we do as well. So all that being said, when should you bug out? Man, it depends. What does it depend on? How tenable is your situation? What's your population density equation? Where do you live? You know, what does SHTF look like? How prepared are you? Get your time to implementation to as small a window as possible. And then when the opportunity presents itself, go. Don't stand around and scratch your head. Go. Shalom.